So,
Diabetic neuropathy.
so diabetes, we all know about it, right? And so, funny thing is, I was explaining to my team about the term the sugar or sugars, right? And so,
Mhm.
one is Mexican and one is Cuban, and I was like, that's something that's how we describe it in our community, right? Like if you hear
Yeah.
somebody say they got the sugar, right? It's like you got diabetes, and basically is that your regulation of sugar is dysfunctional, is malfunctioning,
Mhm.
dysfunctional. And as a result, a lot of things can happen to you, right? So I don't want to go too deep into the diabetes. Hopefully, we've got enough education in our population to
Yeah.
understand, you know, what it represents and how to most effectively manage it, right? But unfortunately, despite that information being readily available to us, we still suffer higher rates of this. Every show when we talk about a condition, we always it always comes up like, man, we get it the worst, right? And again, I always pointed out to a lot of the other work that you do because of, institutional systemic racism, that these things trickle down and they affect us in
Right.
ways that people couldn't even predict it at the time when they were doing these things. And still now we're kind of unraveling, right? So even things like the access to quality food or fresh foods and vegetables, and how poverty or financial distress makes a big difference maker in the type of foods that you choose, right? So
Mhm.
if you ain't got it like that, you're going to get the cheaper, the easiest, the more processed, unhealthier food. So there's a lot of reasons as
Right.
to why we suffer these things. And then, unfortunately, there is the big one, which is slavery, right? So you have,
Mm.
400 or 500 years of kind of like this unnatural genetic experiment that's been done on people where it's like forced breeding, and, it's kind of like Darwinism, survival of the fittest in these, from the Middle Passage all the way into like, being on the plantation. And so all of that has created a situation where we have higher incidences of it in our communities, people of African descent who came here, whose descendants came, whose ancestors got here. So diabetic neuropathy is one of the progressions of the disease, right? There are other things that it can do. Some people know it can mess up your kidneys, cause renal failure. So my dad is one of those people. He's got the renal failure as a result of his diabetes. It can mess up your eyes and your vision. You can get diabetic retinopathy. And then it can mess up your nerves as well, amongst other things, right? And the way that it does that, so the blood vessels that it messes up are your kidneys and eyes. Those are really small, and as your body has difficulty processing the sugar, breaking it down, you create this byproduct of it called sorbitol. And sorbitol is really toxic to blood vessels and nerves and starts damaging them.
Wow.
When those blood vessels and nerves get damaged, you start to have dysfunction of the end organ or the thing that was receiving the blood, like your kidneys or your eyes.
Wow.
Diabetic neuropathy is the manifestation of that in your nerves. And so this stuff, because you have so much sugar that can't be processed, is then processed through an alternate pathway, breaks it down into this stuff called sorbitol, which messes up the way that your nerves function and kind of like communicate it. As a result, first thing you start noticing is like pins and needles. Like, man, my feet have been tingling. Or I've like, hey, sometimes my toes get really cold, or like, I can't sleep at night because I get this burning sensation. And see, these are the, early signs of that, where people start saying, hey, I know there's something going wrong, but you don't know what it is because it's kind of sublime in the beginning. It could be anything, right? It could be, oh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
slept wrong, I worked
Right.
out, right? It could be a number of things, right? And it'll kind of vacillate, come and go. Unfortunately, that's the first, like that, there's no coming back for that. Once you start feeling that damage is already done. So you can't like,
I was just gonna say, well, if you feel that, is that like a danger, danger, Will Rogers?
yeah,
Like we got, I think it's Will Rogers. I can't remember.
yeah,
But is that like, okay, turn around, or by the time you feeling pins and needles, are you already you done crossed the bridge
yeah.
too
So
far?
once you get that means that damage has already happened, right? And so now you're at the, we got to hold it off. We don't want it to get any worse, because as it gets worse, it starts doing a lot of things again that you don't notice. For example, you start getting numbness. So these are called paresthesias and dysesthesias. And basically, you get tingling, you got numbness, right? If the numbness then progresses itself, the way that you walk is affected because you're not getting the feedback from your foot hitting the ground the way
Wow.
everyone else is, right? So you're kind of like your perception, proprioception of the ground changes. And then that starts to affect how your feet actually weathers you walking around. Eventually, you'll get numb enough, and this happens to a lot of people, you'll get these ulcers, right? These ulcerations or these wounds on the feet. And those are because you don't feel things. You bump into things, you're damaging the foot, and you're not aware of what's going on. And those
So it's like when you come out of the dentist or the orthodontist and you're so numb, you could be poking yourself in the face and you don't feel
and you don't
anything.
feel it.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's, so that's the real important. And then you go on further. Once the circulation goes and you let this stuff progress far enough, that's when you see like the extreme of it. You wind up with amputations. Amputations themselves are a significant event in people's lives because it decreases quality of life, decreases life expectancy. In some cases, when you wind up with an amputation, you wind up with a decrease in life expectancy that is similar to a major cardiovascular event like a stroke or a cardiac event like a heart attack. So you get an amputation, your 5-year survivability rate is about the same as if you had a heart attack or a stroke. So you want to get, right, people don't understand that, but you want to get this stuff under control. Now, when we come into
To have me reevaluate my whole ass diet because I do love sugar. Like I am definitely I have a sugar addiction. Like that is definitely a thing, and I'm about to get my whole life.
yeah,
Jesus.
you got to, we got to, because there's so much of it. It's like the salt. There's so much of it in the foods that we eat, in the processed foods that we eat, that we're just not even aware of it. And of course, there's some cultural things in that we do cook some things heavy-handed with the sugar. Some people do make their yams, and it's like 10 parts sugar, 1 part yam. It's like
You don't know me. You be judging me.
so so going into this, it's like if we look at it, African American men are at the highest risk of developing this and progressing. So sorry, fellas, hate to tell you that. Excuse me. And people from lower socioeconomic status are also at higher incidences, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Obviously, access to healthcare, education, opportunities to get personal care time. So there's a number of reasons where healthcare disparities affect us, right? And so again, the number one way to manage diabetes and to hold off the diabetic neuropathy is health. It's the healthy lifestyle. So it's diet and exercise. Number one thing. Like, unfortunately, there are some genetic components to it, right? But once you start on a medication pathway, if you don't do the diet and exercise, you're only going to wind up on more medication. And obviously, medication does not solve all the issues because we see it progresses to all these other things despite being on the medication. So you still have to moderate your sugar and increase your physical activity. And that also includes your refined simple carbohydrates because they get turned into sugar by your body real quickly. So your
Wait. You mean bread? You talking
yeah,
about bread?
bread,
Damn it.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
I'm also addicted to bread. It's delicious when
No,
it's warm and crusty on the outside and just soft and buttery on the inside. And then
yeah, man, warm and crusty on the outside. It's not like the old Republicans who were just crusty on the outside.
And cold and shriveled and no hearts on the inside.
Exactly.
No, we like bread.
Yeah.
Not mean old people. Good old people, nice old people we love, but the mean ones,
like a
not so much.
grandmama.
Yeah, exactly. So okay, I gotta recognize my situation with bread, which I kind of already knew, but sugar, I'm gonna have to figure some things out. And my challenge is that I have what somebody once told me is called TOFI, TOFI, thin on the outside, fat on the inside. I don't know if that's an actual medical term, but I heard it from a medical person. So I have the illusion of a whole lot of health, but I have a sugar and bread addiction. So if I want to avoid diabetic neuropathy, or frankly, if we're already talking about people who have it, is there a role for CBD to play with that? I mean, there has to be because we're talking about it in the Flower to the People segment, but how does CBD help prevent or help manage the symptoms of diabetic neuropathy?
So I'm gonna tell you something real funny. When you said you had tofu, right? That's what you call the crystals that deposit in your joints when you got gout. So I was like,
Jiminy Christmas on a cracker. I rebuke it in the name of
you
Jesus,
got
Allah, and Buddha, and all that's holy. I can't have the gout.
oh,
I
no,
can't get the
that's not
sugar
you
or
and
the gout.
All right,
I
yeah,
rebuke that. I
you
rebuke
can't
it
have
and all
that,
of it.
right?
That is holy. All right,
Um,
baby, I'm gonna need y'all to rebuke it with me. Whoever you pray to, we're gonna collectively rebuke that from all of our experiences. So I don't have the gout. Praise the
uh,
Lord. I'm gonna change my diet so I don't get the sugar either. But if I already
you
have it,
had it,
I
right?
have
So
neuropathy,
yeah, so you
then
got the neuropathy. If you got the sugar and the gout, which you don't, we giving you two conditions today,
we don't
right?
have to. We need a
That's why
fictional
you're so
person to make
tired,
these
girl. It
hypotheticals
ain't the
about.
flight. It's not your
No, it
flight.
was that flight. It was that flight. That damn weather coming out of Detroit last night was crazy. Don't be
So,
putting nothing on me I can't handle. All right,
uh,
go ahead. What's CBD gonna do for the neuropathy, if
so a couple
anything?
things.
What's it gonna do? What's it gonna do?
And so here's a couple of interesting things, right? So starting from the beginning, with glucose control, happens to be a number of studies which found out that cannabis consumers, oddest things because it's counterintuitive, have tighter glycemic control than non-cannabis consumers. So these are
What does
two.
that mean?
All right. So what one of the studies came out of Emory University about a decade ago, and they were studying people's abilities to, maintain or control their blood sugar or medication. And somebody on the research group was like, hey, a lot of these people might smoke weed. And, people smoke weed to get the munchies. That might be a reason why, their blood sugar is out of control because they get high, they get the munchies and start eating a bunch of stuff. So they ran the study and they asked one of the questions, do you consume cannabis in there? Found out when evaluating the results that the people who consumed cannabis in whatever form, self-reported, had better blood sugar control than those who didn't. More
Wow.
intuitive, right? Because it was like I thought these were the people that would be like getting high, getting the munchies, eating a whole bunch of stuff, right? And so another study again found same kind of results. What's up with the weed smokers and why isn't their blood sugar like out of control? Because we would assume again, you smoke weed,
Right.
you're gonna get the munchies, you're gonna eat all this stuff. So finds out a couple of reasons. A, everybody who smokes doesn't get the munchies, right? So that's kind of like an assumption that, that's something that happens. B, come to find out that cannabinoids seem to have an ability to push insulin into your cells. And insulin is what you need to break
Wow.
the blood sugar down. And so for
Huh.
some reason, yeah. And the theory is that the cannabinoids make an energetic demand on you, right? And so
Wow.
it asks for the insulin to come into the cells, which then burns the sugar off, right? And so that's
And just because you
interesting.
get the munchies don't mean you want sugary things. It
Yeah,
just means that whatever you eat is delicious.
delicious.
Allegedly. So I've been told. So all right. So what is it better to inhale if you've got diabetic neuropathy and you want to manage that pain? Or is there any indication that eating or consuming the cannabis might have a different impact? How do people now take this knowledge and then help their nerve endings and then their
So
symptoms?
then when we get the damage from the neuropathy, right, it's a constant inflammatory condition, right? So those nerves are constantly damaged by this byproduct, this sorbitol, right? So they're every day, it's literally, the figurative term where something is on your nerves, right? Like that's on my nerves, right? So this is literally what's happening. There's something getting on your nerves every day, irritating you. You're feeling these things. And so the inflammatory process is one of the big things because that's when your body says, there's something wrong here. We need to fix it. And then they show up to try to fix it. And then instead of fixing it, it actually exacerbates the problem. And so the cannabinoids play a big part in decreasing the inflammatory response to that, right? And so if you've got, for example, advanced diabetes, taking NSAIDs, which are like your non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, like your ibuprofens or your aspirin's not good for you because your kidneys could be affected by it. We don't want that in a diabetic patient. And so having options to manage the pain and the inflammation usually goes into things like narcotics, opioids, or gabapentin, right, which a lot of people don't like, or Lyrica, which makes you sleepy, kind of puts you in a brain fog for some people. So they don't like that. So you're like, I got all this pain. I can't take the basic stuff, right? That bothers me. I can't take the hard stuff because it's either going to constipate me, mess me up, or have me all jacked up. So having a third option, another option that works pretty much as well as the others is really good. So you can smoke it, right? And it'll take away the pain because it'll decrease your brain's perception of the pain, right? It'll change. So you're like, oh, something's there, but it don't really bother me the way it does. So you can sleep at night. But it doesn't last long if you inhale it, smoke it, or vape it, right? And then you can eat it, drink it, which is the traditional way that this was used as a medicine. And I want to make this very clear to the audience. The development of people smoking cannabis is something that really, like, is a big thing that happened in the last century around the Prohibition time, right? So people came over here and smoked because that was so quick and portable, and that's how you can get it done in and out. But prior to that, it was literally, there were tinctures, oils in people's medicine cabinets. Like, that's how it was done. And then people were brewing teas with the leaves, right? So this is like a new thing where everybody's like, well, I'm going to smoke it. I'm going to smoke it because of the ease and the portability of it, right? You can like get in and out. You can get it done because you're doing a criminal act now, right? Before it was like, this ain't no criminal act, bro. I can just brew a tea. I'm chill. I don't have to like hide and engage in all types of subterfuge. It's right there, right? So when you eat or drink it, it stays in your body much, 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 much longer. So let's say you're a diabetic a patient with neuropathy, like my father is, right? So my dad is in a nursing home now, had a stroke a while back, and he's like, I can't sleep at night. My feet are killing me. So I'm like, I go check him out, and I'm like, Dad, those feet are like, yeah. And he's like, they're giving me this stuff, and I can't take it. It just makes me feel horrible. So I sent him, so he's on a CBD, gets a monthly prescription, and it's like a monthly subscription. We send him capsules every month, and at the nursing home, they give it with him with his other medication, like an hour before he goes to bed, and it allows him to sleep. That's a significant thing. If you can't sleep because your feet are killing you all night, right? That means you never get to rest and heal. So the next day, your body's even more inflamed, right? Because you've been under stress all night. All right, so that's
You're
no
cranky and irritable and
yeah,
exhausted.
and cranky, and your feet are still hurting you, right? And so the CBD is a very, very good anti-inflammatory, while the THC is very good on the pain aspect of it because it also decreases the intensity of the signal of the pain that's going to your brain. Where CBD is
Now,
telling
can you take CBD and THC together? I
yeah.
feel like at one point somebody on the show had mentioned that CBD will cut the efficacy of THC. I can't remember if that was you or somebody
So
else.
yeah.
What do you say to that?
So the THC, I actually think it's better when you have them together. There's something called the entourage effect in cannabis, where it's basically
Okay,
the plant is better when you have all its components. Again, what's happened as a
makes
result
sense.
of prohibition is that people have been smoking a lot, which wasn't traditionally how the medicine was consumed. And then they started growing this stuff with high levels of THC because it was like being sold as a drug, not a medicine. If you're selling a drug, you got to give the people what they want, right? You want to get high, I'm going to give you the stuff that gets you high, right? And so we've gotten, into this kind of state where we're all in on high levels of THC, which is not how it's supposed to be. And so having a little blend of the two of them is actually better. And you're right, the CBD does affect the THC's impact on your brain. So the CBD controls how high the THC can make you. So if you have products that are balanced or even have more CBD than THC, it won't make you high. So you can have basically all day products if you have that. If you're smoking the high THC or drinking high THC stuff, it ain't good all day because you're going to be high, right? And like you can't work.
Right. You can't hardly think. You might not remember
Yeah.
your name if you do it wrong,
Yeah.
allegedly. We have a question online. Shout out to Original Zilla, who says they appreciate the show and they appreciate you talking about this topic. They wanted to know if there's a version of CBD that has no THC. And I know that's something you know a whole lot
Yeah.
about. We only have a minute, Dr. Damas, but what would you say to folks who are new to the Flower to the People segment who want to be able to access the benefits of CBD without THC, particularly because this person is interested in the possibility of drug testing? So we only have about a
Yeah.
minute or two, but could you speak to that
So
quickly?
we do have, so at our shop online, drdamas.com, drdamas.com, or spell it out. Make sure you put code Lurie, Lurie, to get hooked up when you purchase. We have gummy bears specifically designed to have everything that comes in the plant except for the THC in it for people
They're
who
dope.
can't have THC. So pregnant people who have
Yep.
jobs that are drug testing, so you can get all the benefits of the CBD in it without risking your livelihood or any other criminal prosecution, whatever it may be. So you can go to our site and do that, or you can also call us for that. And then you could also put things on the feet like cannabinoid products, CBD, THC, like the reliever. You can actually put it on the extremity and decrease the pain sensation there as well. So you don't necessarily just have to eat it, smoke it, drink it. You actually apply it to the area. And I prefer a combination of all the above, right? Just to get at it in different ways, because everything kind of has its benefit. When you do that, you're more manageable. If you're in pain, you can exercise a little bit more, which helps you control your blood sugar.
Wow. This is so helpful, and it's information that I wish people who, have been suffering with this for a long time, I wish we had gotten this to them earlier. That's one of the beautiful things about having you as a part of this space, Hervé Damas. We always appreciate when you come through and make it plain. And I think these conversations are helping even more people to get way more comfortable seeing cannabis as a medicine, as a vegetable, which it actually is, as opposed to sort of this recreational drug. And then that little history you slipped in about the fact that smoking it, inhaling is a very newer form of taking it in. That is significant, and I wish more people knew that, because we have a lot of folks who only know what it is to inhale and they miss out on all the other benefits. And you had described it once before. I think you said inhaling is like a handshake, the edible is like a warm hug.
Yeah.
So long as the hug is not oppressive, you didn't overdo it, allegedly, then you should be good to go. Dr. Damas, we appreciate you, my brother. How can people get to your store again? How can they reach out to you? You have phenomenal customer service. What's the best way for the good folks out there to reach you?
So again, get us up on the website, drdamas.com, drdamas.com. D like a dog. R, right? Shout out to all the Q's. All
Oh,
right.
you're
You
so
could
on
also
brand.
and you could also call us at 833-362-3262, 833-362-3262. Also want to give you guys a heads up. We've been redesigning the website. So we got a brand new like knowledge section. If you go to the website and you click on the knowledge section of the website, it's categorized into like things that are easily accessible. We put out a lot of content when it comes to that, right? So you'll see, and then you'll be able to see all of our old Flower to the People articles and some of the shows that we've been able to source from YouTube or the information we've got. So you just go to drdamas.com, click on the knowledge tab, and find what you want to read about and learn about, then it's there for you.